Hello, welcome to Taxpayer Alert. I'm Al Segalla. I'll be your moderator. I'm also president of the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. We're most interested in the things that are happening in the community, relate to the law and relate to government, and we try to get information to the public through this series, this program. We always have interesting guests. We don't allow those that are not to participate. So along those lines, we're delighted to have Barden Stevenot as our guest on this program. Barden, welcome.
Thank you, Al. Thanks for having me. I'm glad you think I'm interesting.
Yeah. Well, probably the best thing is a little bit about your background. You've been around here quite a while. Your name is known. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, the family roots go back into the gold rush days on the Stevenot side and on the other side. So it's I have lived most of my life here. I grew up in Angels Camp, went to Bret Harte High School, left for university, college, and military service, and the rest of the time I've been back here doing business. So
you've been in the wine business. Yeah, I understand you sold your winery.
Yes, I did.
And also you've been involved with the development of the subdivision in Angels Camp, and then some other things up the hill. Is that true?
Yes. In reverse order, Greenhorn Creek was the last project. That was a project with the city of Angels Camp to build the golf course and residential area. And my earliest days, I was a very young manager of the project at Kirkwood, and that's where I had a full load of government. I had 3 counties to deal with. There's 3 counties in Kirkwood Basin, and the Forest Service, the Sierra Club, El Dorado Water District, so on. So that gave me quite an experience in dealing with intergovernment relations.
So you know how to handle bureaucrats?
Well, I'd like
I'd
like to think I do, but I'm not sure about that at all.
Okay. Well, moving ahead, why are you involved in this particular issue? The issue is the new ordinance going on the ballot. It's Measure D, and it's regulation of commercial marijuana use, not the medical marijuana.
It's not really about use. It's about regulation of the
manufacture
of the growing,
okay,
of actual growing. It's a growing ordinance. It's a land use ordinance.
Okay.
And I got involved because of a lot of concerned old-time neighbors who were feeling pressured when there was a land boom here early in this year of people wanting to come in and start farms.
Yes.
And the county responded to that very well with the urgency ordinance, and now things are looking pretty good for that section. We're setting this up to make it a permanent situation.
I see.
Permanent regulating ordinance, regulated cannabis growing, not use. There's no use attached here.
Okay.
That's a state issue. That's not our issue.
I understand. And the emergency ordinance basically doesn't allow new commercial growing until there's another ordinance in place to take the place of the emergency ordinance.
That's correct. The urgency ordinance is limited in time, and however, our new ordinance is tied to state law, which changes things in 2018. There are avenues where the county can probably put in some limits. I've been talking to legal authorities on this, and I think there's some ways that the county can actually slow down the growth altogether.
Okay. Now, would this slowing the growth down be the result of regulations that make it difficult to be in business?
No, I think it's basically business specific that this county has an opportunity to accept the 700 and so people that we have already signed in as registrants under the urgency ordinance.
I see.
And then see if they want to go ahead with more.
I understand. So you're trying to achieve a sense of peace and harmony,
right,
between the neighbors and the cannabis growers and the public. And I assume that the cannabis growers are not bad people, although there may be some.
One can only assume the ones that came out and registered were people that wanted to be regulated or felt it was necessary to be part of the community. I think many of them are of that mind. Some are probably reluctant. The ordinances are strong, and it makes it not easy to conform with all the regulations. But I think the people that are there, what I get from them when I do see some of them is that they want to be part of the community. They want to be a good part of the community. They want to be socially part of this county.
In our Taxpayer Association, very seldom do we ever run into people that want to be taxed.
Well, that's true, and I think they're not overwhelmingly overjoyed about it, but I think that they understand that in order to protect the general county they live in and to make things fit, there's going to have to be money for law enforcement and other things to regulate and to put this in its proper position.
So you've put together a team for Measure D. Tell us a little about the team you put together.
Well, it sort of put itself together.
Okay.
There's a former county supervisor, Marita Calloway.
Yeah.
And she and I are probably the prime proponents, but there's a doctor, there's a hardware store owner, there's a restaurateur, well-known people, and we signed on as proponents for this. I was picked as sort of the conservative counterweight to anybody that wasn't that conservative. So, I mean, that's where I fit in the picture.
Well, we've had Marita on several times on our program, and she's just been delightful. Yeah. And she tends to be a little bit more on the liberal side, so she's kind of a balance to me. And there are times where she's right, so I got to be careful.
Well, she's often right. She's very, very smart.
Yeah, she is.
And I enjoy working with her. She's a good teammate.
Yeah, well, she's helpful to me because when we put together things that we advocate, I share with her and get her thoughts, and quite often I make some serious changes in what I'm doing because of her intelligence.
I've done that too. I've changed a few things because of her insights.
I understand there's basically three choices. One is to do nothing. Right. Two is to support this ordinance, the regulations, and the third one is to support a ban or try to promote a ban of marijuana. Now, I understand a lot of, or maybe most counties in California have a ban, which makes a black market appear in this marijuana thing.
Yes.
Which means you don't have the really good people that are going to put a lot of money into it. They're going to be mostly more outlaw type people.
Exactly. I have a anecdotal story from someone I consider extremely reliable that was at a large supply agency in down in the valley, and when looking at all of the soils and greenhouses and things that were leaving this place, he said, "Well, where's all that going?" And he said that a lot of counties have banned it, and this gentleman that owned this huge place said, 80% of my business goes to counties that banned it. So banning it is, and what happens with banning is you push these people back into a defensive position. Right. It makes it's not a good thing to do. They move into land where they trespass often. They take water that's not appropriate to their use. They end up you get the rough bunch with the ban. The good people are the ones that want to be regulated, want to be inside the system, inside our county.
Where's the money come from to in order to have a ban be effective? It has to be enforced by force, by government, right, or by the sheriff.
Yes.
Where's the money come from for that?
Well, there's no funding at the sheriff's level. We have a new sheriff who I think is doing a strong job of reaching out to the public. he's going to be a very good sheriff, I think. And there is no funding to take out banning a banned system of growing. There's just none. Federal government just 2 days ago reached out from the Ninth Circuit Court, I believe it was, and said that the prosecutor's offices, the federal prosecutor, had to drop all the lawsuits that are in states where medical marijuana is approved. So there's no federal arm on it. The only place the feds do abatement of any kind is on federal property. They do it every year. They're up here every year in the mountains, and they take down grows that are trespass on government property.
Well, that increases the value of the product.
That's probably true too. Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't think it suppresses it.
Yeah, I think that's.
But
true
it suppresses it enough to keep the price, make it worthwhile growing.
Right.
So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. They always never arrest anybody. They just confiscate the product and burn it.
Well, yeah, there's very little strength in criminality of use of marijuana since 1996. 20 years, the state's changed its position on it. And so it is difficult to prosecute. It's difficult to abate unless you have an ordinance.
Yeah.
If you have an ordinance which is realistic, you can do that.
Okay. So the consequences of a ban would put us in a position worse than we have now, in that there'll just be no way of keeping track, and we'll be attracting an element that's more criminally oriented because they're participating in a black market.
I think that's absolutely true. There's the people that want to ban it are honestly opposed to it, but mostly because of use.
Yeah.
And they confuse use with land use. I mean, we're here to take care of our county. We're here to empower the voters in this county to say that we want a regulated, sensible system. And we can't do anything about use. That's not our issue at all. So the banners basically are hoping for something from some place to take care of it, but there's nothing out there. And there is no reason, given the system we've got, to set the sheriff up with no assets for that sort of an arrangement.
Also, the sheriff would be dealing with people that are more inclined to be criminals and could be violent. If they're trying to defend, I haven't heard of instances where they've tried to defend themselves, but they could.
I doubt if they'll do it against law enforcement. They usually melt into the woods. They never do collar many of them.
Right.
So, but the issue is when they're pushed back into the woods, they become a threat, and they're not legal. They're back in let's say in Forest Service land. They're pushing people. Hikers come across them. There is danger in an outlaw group. You know, it's the old thing. If growing is outlaw, only growers that'll be there will be outlaws.
And that's true with firearms too.
Yeah, that's the old way. Right.
Now, there's a number of things. The ordinance involves land use, water, security, the environment, and what's involved with land use?
Well, we picked up our ordinance is 90+% county verbiage. It was a combination of both the ordinance, the draft ordinance that went through the Planning Commission, plus the urgency ordinance. And what we did was we used all of their material and we strengthened it in place. We made it a little tougher. Our ordinance basically is designed along with the county with 2-acre minimums, strict zoning. There's 75-foot setbacks. All the complaint areas that were being complained about by my friends, the neighbors.
Right, you identify.
The county addressed that, and we just picked that up and put it in our ordinance.
I see.
And so you have a lot of small issues with land use. The water use is another one altogether. I hear lots of stories out there sort of myths about water use. If you took all of the farms that registered and you double it, and you look at the plants and how much they use a day, which is about 1.5 gallons a plant per day during the hot season,
right,
you end up with the use of water of one golf course. That's it. That's an equivalent for the whole bunch of them together. So they're drawing from lots of little aquifers. They may be. Another way of putting it is that there's roughly 2,000 acres of irrigated pasture in this county.
right.
If you took all that use, that's the equivalent of 200 acres of irrigated pasture. Double it, it's 400 acres of irrigated pasture. So you're looking at about a fifth equivalent for water use. The way the ordinance is set up, they have to have legal water. They have to have wells. They have to have, those are certified wells. They have to have, or a pond or whatever they have license to use. They have to set up with the Water Quality Control Board of California, which is one of the strictest agencies around. And that covers their use of the land, how much erosion they can do, and their use of water.
I see.
And the Water Quality Board is charging them $2,000 to $10,000 per grower to certify them. And that's part of what they have to do to be registered in this county, because the state requires that anyway.
That seems like a lot of money.
Well, it does to me too. It seems like a lot of money, but the Water Quality Board is a giant among government state agencies in California, and they can get what they can get. And they went to the state legislature and they said, okay, we'll monitor these people. We're going to look at their water use, their runoff, and what have you. $2,000 if they're on flat land, $10,000 if they're on slopes of over 30%. So the Water Board won.
All right. The next item is security. The ordinance measure talks about security.
Well, they have to have under the ordinance, they have to have a 6-foot fence that is locked and it prevents casual ingress to the property.
In view?
And they have to have a screen if they can be seen from a public road or a public place. Has to have a screening fence of some material. They're basically, the standard is to make sure that they are secure and that the public's secure.
Right. I overheard the sheriff speak on this issue a few times. One of the things that he's critical of, he'd like to have the power to go onto a grow and then get background checks of all employees, not just the person in charge, but if they have pickers come in, he want to get background checks on the pickers as well. And I understand that request of his was not included in the ordinance.
That was inadvertent on our part. I mean, they did this in a late session, and we didn't pick that up. However, there is another avenue written in our ordinance that provides for some leeway when issues of public safety are addressed. And I mean, if they have a problem, they can go. It's written into the ordinance 3 times. It's repeated, and it goes on about the leeway the county has for public safety. There are other methods they can use for doing background checks and requiring them, and I think that's going to come up in the near future. I have a legal opinion coming on that.
Yeah, I understand. There's some people that have found some flaws in the ordinance, right. And it seemed like that the process of identifying and correcting that would be not that difficult if it seems to be reasonable.
You know, it's a question of whether your cup is half full or half empty.
Well, you mean it's not perfect?
Yeah, it's not perfect. We never said it was perfect. I mean, this was an ordinance that is, I say, it's when you boil it down, it's 99% county originated, and we've compared it. We've done it with a matrix, and it's good. It's a decent ordinance. I get that from the law firm I'm using. And that law firm is completely outside of any cannabis business. This law firm is a state ordinance land use attorney firm in Sacramento, and so I've used them for years for other projects. And they think it's a decent ordinance. They think that these things can be, there are places for their room to grow it and make it work for everybody.
Now, some of the criticism, of course, are the people that want to ban marijuana, and a large number of people are probably indifferent about it. They don't have any experience with it, and they don't
Right.
negative or positive. Then there's some other group of people, a small number, that think that live and let live is a better solution to having bureaucracy and regulations.
Well,
what do you say to those people?
Well, I think they're pretty much on track. I mean, this is a gold rush community. When I grew up, there were people from every corner of the world had come in here to work
Right.
in the mines. I mean, there were waves of immigrants came in. To me, this has always been an inclusive community, and we just need to get the view that we're going to make some lemonade out of the lemons we got. If there are any lemons, let's make lemonade.
So it's possible for the people that believe in property rights that this could be modified in a reasonable manner in the future that would allow these growers to be treated like maybe people that grow orchards or vineyards.
Well, I think the state puts a little bit of a spin on that. The state law that's coming through, MRSA, is very controlling of the whole situation. And so the county is just in the land use business, and it can't dictate, other than to pass a tax measure. You set up the ordinance to facilitate both parties. That's what we try to do. You've got the old residents here, and you've got the new residents here, and you try to make everybody happy.
Right.
And the growers seem to make a great effort to do that.
Right.
I don't think they feel put upon by government asking them for to pay their own way getting into the system.
So you have a website. It's what is that website?
It's Calaveras Cannabis Control, all one word, .com. And at the bottom of that website, you can go down and you can read the entire ordinance. Just click on it and read the ordinance.
So that's cannabis.
Calaveras Cannabis Control. You can Google that or go to C3, we also call it. And I think even Google might even be able to pick up C3 as CalaverasCannabisControl.com.
Okay, that's good. So that's a good source of additional information.
Absolutely. It's all an educational process, basically. It's just bringing people up to speed. I think I'd be amazed, I'd be very disappointed if the people, when they realize, if they can realize what's at stake and how this works, I expect the voters to push this in because this is good for them.
I've been to some of the meetings, and in fact, the Democrats had a pretty unbiased meeting, and Rita Callaway was one of the speakers, and then a prominent fellow, I forget his name right now, who heads the opposition.
Bill McManus.
Bill McManus,
I believe it is. Yes.
And he's at Board of Supervisors meetings quite often as well.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Matter of fact, he ran against Marita.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, how does the outlook look right now? Is there any kind of polling of what public opinions are or anything like that?
We're not at that stage yet. We're just trying to put together a campaign to educate voters, let them know what's going on. Thank you for having me here because this is part of that.
Okay.
And we'd like to talk to anybody. Feel free. I'm in the phone book. Call me. I'd like to talk to anybody who's really interested in this issue. I mean, has an in-depth interest.
Yeah. Many of the real estate people are including the website, the Calaveras County website in the Plan Department page, and at the top there's the latest ordinance that's in place now.
Yes.
And then they can get full information before they get involved in buying real estate. I know a number of more responsible real estate brokers handle it that way, so that they make sure that the people are when they buying their eyes are wide open.
They have to be wide open, because there's no guarantee that they'll be licensed at this current time.
Yeah, and it could take
years. I mean, it could take over a year if they are allowed a new license open period. What would happen? There's a frequently asked questions site on that planning commission under cannabis too. So all of those are there.
Well, getting the information is the bottom line, and the voters want to make sure that the consequences of their vote are not going to bring about an environment that's worse than we have now. Hopefully, it'll be better. I mean,
I can see nothing but improvement. I mean, you've regulated. If you tax it, you'll have the money for law enforcement. But you're regulating something that was unregulated. It's an environmental ordinance that's getting in there right now instead of being delayed. This is important stuff as far as the community is concerned.
If it's passed in November, when would it go into effect?
It goes into effect, I believe, around the first of the year. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I'd have to look at that. I have to talk to the registrar.
Okay, we'll get that on your website.
Yeah, I will.
The state is doing something that looks like they want to control the entire industry, and I know taxpayer groups are usually not too keen on the government getting so involved. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's they've put up a large organization, over 275 people, I believe. And the head of that is a woman that was with the ABC, the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, I believe. And I believe that's where she was. So she is organizing this, and I think it's set up somewhat like alcohol beverage control. It's to keep it out of the hands of minors, to see that there's a secure line for growers to get it to their respective destinations without trouble.
Well, we're coming to the end of our interview now. Are there some last words that you may have?
Well,
when people go vote, I think you're going to say,
vote yes.
Vote yes.
Vote yes on Measure D.
Okay.
Hopefully vote yes on Measure C, which taxes them, and they seem to be willing to be taxed.
Okay. Thank you, Barden.
Well, thank you for having me, Al. Thanks very much.
Thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert.